How are we going to survive? We've lost everything. There's another one.
Alive.
Tempers are at red rage point.
I trust Hezbollah.
Hezbollah are very sensitive about us showing any pictures, and we're being hurried away right now. This is what an Israeli military targeted strike looks like minutes afterwards. It's the southern suburbs of Lebanon's capital, Beirut, and there's mayhem. Pictures taken by residents show the strike appears to have flattened an entire high-rise block. Cars flipped, others caked in grey dust. Dozens began the search for survivors, with several trapped. The attack's the most deadly Israeli airstrike on the capital in nearly 2 decades. This area is heavily populated. Lebanese television stations aired pictures of homes. This suburb is packed with shops, markets and apartments, but it's also strictly controlled by the fighting group and considered a Hezbollah stronghold. The Israeli military say the strike killed a wanted senior Hezbollah commander and a group of his elite force. Army checkpoints were quickly established, but the bomb site is controlled by Hezbollah and access heavily restricted, particularly for foreign media. We've been told to leave the area. Our pictures have been deleted. We're very close to the bomb site, but there's obviously tempers are at red rage point, and everyone, well, certainly the media is being cleared out of the area for now. This used to be a multi-storey building, now flattened. The site of the Israeli strike is a scene of utter devastation. The rescue workers still haven't found all the missing people, among them children. There were glimpses of basements. The Israeli military say they had intelligence that top Hezbollah commanders were meeting somewhere below ground here. Above, though, we saw homes and shops, their stock of women's clothes still hanging. It's inconceivable that any airstrike in this area would not have impacted heavily a large number of civilians. The area is surrounded by residential blocks, so obviously civilians were going to be impacted by this. The rescue workers are still looking for survivors with no expectation of finding any. The Israeli authorities boasted this attack almost completely dismantled Hezbollah's military chain of command. Lebanese cabinet ministers have called it a war crime. The death and destruction in Gaza are on top of the Israeli bombing in Beirut, and this after days of booby-trapped devices exploding in Lebanese markets, shops and funerals. It's infuriated Hezbollah, whose leader has vowed to take revenge for all of this. Will Hezbollah respond, do you think?
Inshallah, Hezbollah will respond soon.
Are we heading to a big all-out war?
Should be punished soon.
Are we heading to an all-out war, a regional war?
I don't know. This is not our goal. This is not our goal. Israel should cease fire in Gaza. Israel should stop killing civilian people in Gaza.
The UN's warning the situation is perilously close to tipping into a wider war, which risks dwarfing even the devastation and suffering witnessed so far. They gathered in their thousands in the Lebanese capital in a huge show of support for Hezbollah, but also staunch defiance in the city still reeling from multiple attacks over the past week. The loss of one of the Hezbollah key commanders and part of his elite force has hit hard this, the most powerful militant group allied with Iran. But with words that will chill the West, the group's deputy leader promised a battle without limits against Israel. Well, there seems to be absolutely no indication that Hezbollah is going to back down. In fact, their leaders are promising even tougher action than what's already been seen. The attacks from their neighbour seem to be galvanising resistance instead from the old and the young.
We definitely don't want an all-out war, and the only one who will decide this is Netanyahu. But if he wants it, we're ready for it.
You can't blame us for being negative. And of course, and they're bombing us. Yeah, if you were bombed in America or Britain, you would say that that's terrorists. We can also say that that's terrorists, and we are being killed. My future is being broken in front of my eyes.
I am nervous. I know, and I'm scared. but I can't express it because I believe in Sayyid Hassan, and I believe and I trust Hezbollah, and I know that we are not gonna lose because we're strong, and if we trust the thing, it will happen. And yes, I love you, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah.
Another bloody day in Lebanon. The Israeli airstrikes just keep on coming. 2 more strikes in Lebanon's capital, the 3rd time in 5 days that Beirut's been hit. Shredded bodies too graphic to show were blown onto car roofs. The Israeli forces said they targeted the head of Hezbollah's missiles and rockets unit, Mohammed Kabisi, and other commanders, although this wasn't immediately confirmed by the militants. This area is the heartland of Hezbollah in the capital, but it's a crowded population hub too. South of the country got pounded again. They've been non-stop. Oh, there's another one. We witnessed the airstrikes throughout the day. It's been relentless. The Israeli force promised to accelerate their offensive, and they're holding good on that vow. The constant bombardment means the mass movement of people has been going on for more than 30 hours now. Battered and scared, Sada said he was on his motorbike when he was hit. The desperate rush to get out of the line of fire means the humanitarian crisis here is growing and growing. My family have no money. We've got nothing, Fatima told us. How are we going to survive? We've lost everything. Like many here, her home was bombed and people have been scrambling to get basic supplies as the two-way bombing continued. Don't know what that is. There's a lot of explosions around here. It sounds like it might be outgoing, but I can't really tell. It's very, very close. The emergency workers are overwhelmed, struggling to cope with scarce resources and a sudden spike in the numbers who've been forced out of their homes, on top of those who fled over the past year of cross-border exchanges. The Israeli forces hit east of the country too, the Bekaa Valley. They say they're targeting Hezbollah weapons stores and fighters hiding in residential areas. But amongst the dead in the Bekaa Valley was a young mother who worked for UNHCR. She and her young son were killed when an airstrike hit their home. Her husband and second child survived but are critical. The refugee agency said it was outraged and saddened at the killing. The emergency centres are full of families. This man told us his was the only home in his village left standing and insisted his area was not involved in the fighting.
That's not true. Not a single target was on a military position. They're only hitting civilians. We don't have military operations in our village.
It's been a terrifying few days for Lebanon and one of the nation's worst weeks in nearly a year, with a titanic wave of people moving out of the south and still moving. We were among the huge displacement and saw the constant airstrikes either side of the main coastal highway as people tried to flee. Oh, over there, to your left. Yeah. The attack was on an industrial site, about 100 metres from the highway, where tens of thousands of people were sitting in their vehicles. But as the fires burned, we were hastily stopped. And judging by the secondary explosions, it did appear as though there might be weapons stored here. There've been airstrikes every day. There've been airstrikes every day. Okay, all right. There've been airstrikes every day and all through the day, and there's a big exodus of people. Hezbollah are very sensitive about us showing any pictures, and we're being hurried away right now. The astonishing huge movement of the Lebanese population from the south comes on the back of nearly a year of Israel saying it wants to create a buffer zone so Hezbollah cannot fire into its northern communities. Hezbollah's linked its attacks on Israel since last October to a Gaza ceasefire, and with the Israeli forces vowing to increase their onslaught on the militants, Lebanon looks set for a very rough period ahead. The Israeli bombing of Lebanon shows no sign of stopping. The bombs keep on falling.
3-4 airstrikes.
And this in the face of a growing global demand for a halt. The past 24 hours has seen fresh areas hit and more children killed. Hassan was only 6 years old, killed alongside his mother and father.
The huge amount of devastation, as well as the terror this is causing, and the high number of civilian casualties in just this one airstrike, is what's causing so much alarm and anger.
The people in this village view Israel as the aggressor and Hezbollah as their defenders against a country which has invaded them before and is threatening the same again.
Israel has killed more than 600 people in the past few days in Lebanon, okay? And we're targeting only military bases. So that's what terrorism. They're calling us terrorists, but they've killed more than 600 people.
The Israeli forces say they're destroying Hezbollah's infrastructure and killing its fighters and insist the militants are hiding in homes. Hezbollah's repeatedly said it'll only stop its attacks on Israel since October if there's a Gaza ceasefire, and mourners here believe anything else is unacceptable. The calls for a ceasefire here don't seem to be heeded by either side, with mounting warnings that full-scale war will be devastating for both Lebanon and Israel.